we will be having a new defensive line coach in the future. Matt Rhule announced that former Nebraska defensive line coach Terry Bradden has been let go. Our strength and conditioning coach, Corey Campbell, has been given a raise. You have the exact number. It was like $400,000. Oh, you just told it to me, and I typed it to myself because that's how I take notes. So I'll go ahead and look at it. So a season ago, anyways, Corey Campbell was his 32nd highest paid strength coach in the country, which made him 15th in the Big Ten. Now, barring updates, okay, getting some updates. This is all have obviously happened over the past hour or so. He would be second in the country as far as highest paid strength coaches and first in the Big Ten. We'll see how that all updates down the road. But basically, it's now $1.1 million over 4 years, signed through 2029. Does that all jive with what you heard there, Jake?
Yeah.
Okay. We try to get our facts right on occasion here, unlike the ESPN SEC network. We try to be as unbiased as possible. So some major updates. Got a thing or two to chat about on this show. Before we dive into that, I do want to give a shout out to some sponsors, to some good partners of this show as well. As you know, it is the noon hour, lunch hour here on the Adam Carriker Show. I want to give a shout out to our sponsors at Mulberry Barbecue. They have not one, but now two locations at 11th and Cornhusker and 61st and Apples Way, right off of Highway 2 by Lowe's. Both locations are open Monday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Try their burn-in sandwich, brisket burrito, barbecue nachos, full slab of ribs, have smoked chicken, and plus get incredible and delicious sides. Ladies and gentlemen, get fueled for lunch today or make your dinner plans at Mulberry Barbecue, located 11th and Cornhusker and is 61st and Apples Way, just off of Highway 2 by Lowe's. Initial reaction to Terry Bradden being let go. You hear things all the time. It's a little bit of sifting through, what do you believe? What do you not believe? Who do you trust? Who do you not trust? I have people who text things to me all the time. The people that I pay attention to are those who've been doing it, texting me things the longest, and their information tends out to be the truest. So you heard some rumblings about potentially a new defensive line coach. There's some speculation as to who it might be, which would mean that the current defensive line coach could no longer be there unless, technically we could have two defensive line coaches. And when I first got here, Nelson Barnes was the rush ends coach and Jeff Jamrog was the defensive tackles coach. I didn't foresee us doing that again. By the way, somebody pointed out, it might have been you. Why don't we have two offensive line coaches? And I just thought that was the stupidest thing ever, Jake, until I thought about it for 2 seconds. And I was like, wait, there isn't a position group on the entire field that has more guys on the field at once, 5, than the offensive line. Now, if you're running a 3-3-5, which we're not anymore, maybe it's the secondary. I actually thought that was a decent point. I'm not saying we're doing that. I just, in the moment, I was like, what's he talking about? I was like, oh, maybe down the road, we'll have 50,000 coaches coaching all these position groups. For now, I do believe it's just going to be one. Terry Braden's been let go, and that is what we know so far.
I said, and Dan Young and Milt Diniper were a long time co-offensive line coaches, right? Yeah.
I should have known that because when I was here, they were both yelling at me when I was on the scout team, and I was running the wrong way, giving the offense the wrong look. Well, it was usually them, and then Richie was yelling at me. It was usually between the three of them, there was some colorful language being thrown my direction if I went the wrong way, which tend to happen. All right, when I was out there supposed to be running Penn State or Texas's defense, and I'm this X, and I'm supposed to follow this arrow, and I'm like, because it's rocket science. But that's actually a good point. I forgot about that. So it can be done. Anyways, I digress. The point is, Terry Braden's no longer a defensive line coach. My initial reaction is this. You hear things. You kind of wait to see what happens before you officially address them. At least that tends to be my approach for the most part. I'll hint at things. But even if, you never know what's going to change. Like, Dayton Raiola was supposed to be here for bowl prep practices, and then 5 days later he decommits. So it's like you might hear something. It might be true. Wait 10 minutes, and it might not be. So I'm always kind of like wait and see, make sure it's correct, and then as much as we can. We're going to get something wrong at some point. But then try to talk about it once you know as much for 100% sure as you possibly can. Terry Bradden not being the defensive line coach. I have a couple of reactions. One is he walked into a room that was kind of handed to him. I always understood why he stayed through the Super Bowl with Kansas City. I always understood, hey, what you got, 3 rings already? Like, why not try to get another one? as an assistant defensive line coach. Hey, I was in the back of my mind, I was like, wouldn't it be better to get to your next job? I don't know if that mattered here. I don't know if that was a big deal. I don't know if that would have made a gigantic impact one way or the other. For me, it's a sign that Rhule is sending a clear message. We have got to get better in the trenches. You win football games in general. I mean, I'll be honest, it can be the NFL. It can be youth football. It can be high school football, college football. But I'm going to say especially in the Big Ten. You win in the trenches. And the trenches were the weakness of the team this year. You walked into every game this year, the last month of the season, barring maybe UCLA. And even depending on how you felt about UCLA's trenches, you were like, we have a disadvantage here. And that's going to hurt us. There were other things you felt good about. I feel good about the running back. You know, I will maintain that and no excuses, but if Dylan doesn't get hurt, we probably beat USC. That's part of football, though. Again, we lost to Iowa, who had a 4-string walk-on quarterback a year ago. So you got to find ways to overcome these things because everybody has challenges. But when you walk into every single contest and you're like, we're at a disadvantage in the trenches, which refers to both sides of the ball, that's not a problem. That's a gigantic problem. It's a problem that's almost impossible to overcome because you would have to be exponentially so much better everywhere else to beat somebody. Dare I say, if you're relatively even across the board, you're going to need some luck in order to win the game. He's sending a message that it wasn't even close to good enough. I don't care when you got here. I don't care who was in the room when you got here. I don't care how much of a part of it you were. I don't care how much time you had. It was not good enough in these key areas, offensive, defensive lines. That's the message that I hear. That's the message that I receive. What are your thoughts on that, Jake?
Yeah, it's interesting to see this play out again, and you know, it's a bit of a day with the combined news that it's a little bit contradictory or just at least in the very least interesting, right? That Nebraska finishes the season, we know, struggling against Penn State, Iowa. You mentioned it, the trenches. I said it before. I felt like that was maybe something that was identified as myself and many others going into the season as a potential weakness. So it's just there's just a lot of moving parts here, and you wonder kind of who's falling on the sword, who just didn't quite, maybe mesh with the staff. Maybe you didn't, maybe they realized that they, from the inside expectations, this might not be the top 10 defensive line, but they want to see, them get better, tactically or, whatever it might be. So there's all different reasons that this has come to a conclusion here. But I just find it very interesting that the offensive line coach and the defensive line coach have both been fired. And at the same, in this very same day that the defensive line coach is announced to be let go, you announced the strength and conditioning coach is getting a massive raise to be one of the tops in the country. So it's just, I can't tell you, and from inside they'll know, and they're making the decisions based on here's what went wrong in the trenches, here's what didn't. And so apparently, again, they love what Coach Campbell's doing. Not so happy with what the return that they got on these other coaches. But the other thing is too, I mean, we were through this cycle last year. You got Bradden last year. You got Butler last year to be a defensive coordinator. So it's kind of interesting to see, where as you go back out there and make these decisions again, what did you learn in a year? And then, how much time is going to be given to these guys? It's crazy. I mean, because Bradden, again, I think maybe you expected more again out of maybe detail-oriented stuff or whatever it might be. It was his first major, hire, as far as being a positional coach in college football. So I don't know. I think a lot of Husker Nation's kind of sitting back and saying we're going to have to see how this plays out. You want to trust Coach Rhule to make these decisions, but we're already a year in after getting burned from doing that from the year before, and all of this in a 7-5 year where you do go to back-to-back bowl games, so it wasn't like a complete failure or anything. So again, just a lot of it's hard to get down to one emotion, one feeling right now because there's just so much going on.
Is there anything off the text line real quick?
4693 says strength and conditioning. Why are we so poor in the second halves of games and late in the year? So So, kind of a same type of feeling as what I was going over there too. Just a little bit confused about the raise. I mean, in the size of the raise, I think is a big one here. By the way, I was looking up to Satterfield. A lot of people want to check the university's pockets on these sort of things. Satterfield's big contract, of course, was still getting paid coordinator money. Did run up this past year, so I'm interested to see what what his salary will be this upcoming season as well.
So his will be more similar to a tight ends coach going forward.
Yeah.
Do you think with Corey Campbell, you think it's a situation where what was it? Penn State earned other coaches across the country $370 million because they're trying to get a head coach, and all of a sudden all these guys, including Rhule, get an extension. And at one point it was up to $370 million worth of extensions because people are trying to keep their coaches. They might not have given them extensions. I'm not speaking specifically on any one coach, but in general, you can't tell me all those same coaches get the same extensions if Penn State isn't trying to come after some coaches.
Oh, no.
So I can't help but wonder, was somebody trying to get Corey Campbell, hence the extension and the raise? I mean, this we don't know. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would have to think so. Again, you're elevating him to a level. There's only $1 million strength and conditioning coordinator this past year. By the way, it was at Oklahoma State. I think won one game this past season. So that didn't necessarily pay off well for that program. But you look at the other kind of tops in the country. It's who you would expect: the Alabamas, the Ohio States, Iowa. Those type of you think a line play up there, and so it just seems like a high number for the return so far. Now, again, maybe they love what they're seeing out of him, and behind the scenes are giving him a lot of credit, and maybe avoiding injuries here, maybe more so. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to read through it. I think you're right though. I mean, I don't think there's any way that you just do this independently with such a high level of raise, and making one of the top paid strength and conditioning coaches, unless you're just going for the look of, hey, we're buying into strength and conditioning, but you already had the guy. So yeah, I mean, I think there had to be maybe some opportunities for him out there.
That would sound, I mean, that would make sense to me if there were some opportunities and you really like Corey and you want to keep him around. You're trying to keep somewhat of a stability in the program. It's interesting because when you fire, the most physical part of the team has to be the trenches. When you fire both those coaches, but you retain the strength conditioning coach, who also plays a huge part in physicality, what that tells me, it's going to come back to John Butler. At least, what we believe he said when Rhule's like, hey, don't tell me the players aren't good enough. Essentially, what Rhule is saying with this, if you think about it, the players are good enough. They're being developed in the weight room good enough. They're not being coached good enough. They're not being taught the proper techniques well enough. That's the message I receive as well from this. I don't know how you take it any other way. Thoughts?
Yeah, no, I got to agree with you. I mean, like you said, I mean, it's that's the only way really to read it because, again, just the size of the raise that's there for your strength and conditioning coach. At the same time, the trenches being the worst in the fault of the team. And I keep going back to it, and I don't want to sound as if I'm calling for anybody's head or blood or anything like that. Just as I see it, again, is that I was not alone, but I was very worried about the trenches coming into the year. So It's just interesting to think, to see how all this plays out and to feel like maybe is there a GM issue? Was there a roster issue at least with the building? And the other thing is just all these guys, it's such minimal time to be able to show what you've done, at least with Donovan Raiola. And people might have different opinions about how long he stayed around at Nebraska or if ever should have been here to begin with. But at least he had 4 years, and you can kind of go back and say, okay, well, this didn't happen throughout his career. With Bradden, it's just kind of like, in Butler, it's like, okay, we're going to throw you this mess, and you better make it great, and it better be even better than a top 25 defense. Again, the rushing defense was really awful at times. Cost Nebraska a lot of games, so it's not just a numbers thing. I get it, but it is just interesting when you make those hires last year. Were you telling them this is kind of a trial period? Because that's what it felt like. This was just kind of a trial hires. If you're firing guys after 1 year, how much conviction? How much how much did you believe in those guys to begin with? And you hope that this time around, you have a high level of belief. Now, again, for me, I love the hires that they're making. I always love resume hires. I think they're making really great resume hires. And it sounds like they're going after another guy with quite a bit of a resume at defensive line. So, it's but back to your point, I don't think there's any other way to read it as I don't think that, like you were saying, that they were that they got everything out of the talent that was in that room based on coaching them up and developing them.
I wonder, you make an interesting point. I wonder with Terry Bradden, if it isn't so much we don't believe in you so much. You're talking about Elijah Robinson. Is that what you're talking about?
Yep.
So I haven't looked since this morning. As of this morning, his Wikipedia page, Elijah Robinson is American football coach and former player who's a defensive line coach for the Nebraska, which is a weird way to word that, but for the Nebraska. That's what it said this morning. Now, that could have been some random fan who I could go change you and make you the president of the United States right now if I wanted.
If I had a Wikipedia page, yeah.
Well, yes. I could create a page, Jake Bakoven, president of the United States.
Right.
But this was sent to me, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. What don't we know? And then we get the announcement. So maybe it's a situation where, because Rhule, I believe he's hired this guy in the past. Like, he has a relationship with this guy in the past. And so maybe there's a little bit of anticipation. I was going to try to go to anticipatory with another fancy word. Nothing came to my mind. Maybe there's just anticipation of who the next D-line coach might be, and they just feel he's just better right now.
Right.
And Rhule needs results now. Terry Bradden, I mean, the dude was ready to be a D-line coach. You look at everything he had done, his experience, he was like, okay. When he was hired, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Just doesn't have the actual experience, but you don't get the experience until you get the experience. You have to go through the experience to get the experience. And I was like, fine with it. Maybe you let go of Bradden because we've already got this guy, and we know right now, maybe the ceiling in the end is about the same, but right now he's at a much higher starting point for the coach that he is to develop the D-line that we need to make plays now, starting right now. And so maybe that's it. All right. Anything else off the text line? I'm curious and to come back to Corey Campbell, let me know if there's anything off the text line in a second. To come back to Corey Campbell, I do believe he's a good strength coach. I've always maintained that. It's hard to, like when we're not stronger in the second half and you are getting pushed around and things of that nature, that can be challenging. But when you give one guy a raise and you give two other guys their walking papers, and I wish them nothing but respect and good luck in the future. Good luck in their future, nothing but respect for them, easy for me to say. That tells me what Rhule believes. The players are good enough. The coaching wasn't. The technique wasn't. The physical development is there. That's not even my opinion. I don't know how you draw any other conclusion from this. So going forward, what I want to see is us getting the knock 'em back in games. I want to see us being the more physical team in the second half. I mean, we've shown we can start fast. Just about every game of the season. Iowa, we started fast. Remember it was 17-16 at one point? Penn State, we went right down the field. Went forward on fourth down. Didn't quite get it, but we went right down the field. Like, we start fast. The second half, which also factors in-game adjustments, in-game management, and those things come back to the mirror, the guy at the top of the food chain, which is Matt Rhule, and he's obviously not going anywhere, but it's all encompassing. It starts at the top with the head coach, to the coordinators, to the assistant coaches, to the strength coach. It's all encompassing. Is there anything off the text line real quick?
There's a few thoughts, and it's kind of interesting how different people feel here. 0326 says, the on-field product over the course of the season supports the moves by Rhule, in my opinion. If he doesn't make these changes, it would leave me feeling rather hopeless going into next year. 4693 says our players were not good enough in the trenches, so has a different opinion on that.
The result wasn't good enough. I think Rhule's saying the players were good enough, but the coaches weren't. You got to have players plus coaching equals result. Again, that's not necessarily my opinion. I can give that in a second. I don't know how you interpret this any other way from Rhule, what's happened today. So go ahead.
Just a couple of thoughts here. 56769 says that's on Rhule. He shouldn't have hired all the guys that he's firing now in the first place. And Just Money G in Kansas says not a lot of confidence in coach making the right hires at this point.
Yeah, during the break, let's look up how many total coaches have been hired, assistant coaches included, because we know we have 7 coordinators now with Rob Arch being hired. But there's been mostly a lot of coordinator hires, but there's obviously a new wide receivers coach. Now we've got a new D-line coach. We're going to have a new offensive line coach. I mean, there has been some other changes, other places as well. Phil Simpson obviously came back. So I'm curious how many total changes there have been. And also, in fairness, I mean, it's today's day and age of college football. Look at Nick Saban's staffs of the past. All the guys that have coached for him, from Dan Lanning to Lane Kiffin to Kirby Smart to all these guys, they're not there anymore. Now, the counter would be they're all off coaching, kicking butt in the college football world in general because they're head coaches somewhere. They weren't let go. They got opportunities to move up. My point is college football just changes so much so fast. I do think that's fair to factor in. But maybe during the break, we can look up the total amount of coaching changes since he's been here. Special teams coordinator, obviously, but that's part of the coordinator changes. Anything else before we go to break real quick?
Not that I see here on the text line.
So I asked your opinion. I'll give mine real quick. The result on the field clearly wasn't good enough. Not in the trenches, not on the offensive line, not on the defensive line. You could see it coming into this. See, like if you find folks listen to us in the offseason, we talked about defensive line question marks because we didn't know at that point in time. Rhule's first year, the biggest question mark in the entire team was defensive line. If you remember, Nash Hutmacher never started a game. Ty Robinson was the only defensive line with any starting experience on that line. And then all of a sudden, Ty has a good season. Nash Hutmacher starts to emerge. And then Cam Lenhart, as a true freshman, balled out. I want to see that guy again this fall, by the way. And the D-line was arguably the strength of the entire team that year. So coming in, we just simply said question mark. But there was like 2 or 3 question marks, and it was fair. And then we said offensive tackle. So some things I feel like they're fairly easy to see. Now the counter could be well, maybe they tried to get certain guys and they didn't have the money that Rhule has said they now have, and they couldn't get certain guys that they wanted. So we came into the season with a certain amount of holes. They tried to address them, but couldn't address them because they didn't have the money. Now they have the money, we've been told. And so maybe we will not have similar issues going forward.